Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books. Today we are going to be doing my wrap up for September and I'm really excited to share everything that I read with you.
Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno di torno.
First of all, I'm really annoyed because my chair is actually broken. We're a little bit lower down than we usually are. I don't know what's gone wrong. I'm gonna have to send someone a politely angry letter being like, excuse me, why is my chair broken? It keeps sinking down. It won't stay up. So that's really annoying, but that's beside the point. Today we're here to look at all the books that I read in September. I had an excellent reading month in September. Did I read everything on my September TBR? Drum roll, please. No, look, I didn't, and we weren't expecting me to, let's be honest. It was one heck of an ambitious TBR, but I basically spent most of the month reading things that were not on my TBR. It was a distracted month and I was excited reading other things. I read 4 books and 4 audiobooks, which is an enormous number of audiobooks. I don't know what's happening with me. I'm just addicted to audiobooks apparently. But yeah, I'm really pleased with everything that I read. So let's get into it and have a look at the books themselves. So the first book that I finished reading in the month was Peggy and Me by Miranda Hart. This is the second volume in her memoirs. I can't remember what her first memoirs are called now, but I really enjoyed them. I love Miranda Hart. I think she's such a fun comedian and I really enjoyed reading her first memoirs. They were so funny. They were just delightful and inspiring to read and I thought that they were fantastic. And so I've been meaning to pick up the second installment, Peggy and Me, for a really long time, but the actual physical copy I was just finding difficult to get like my hands on for a reasonable price, and then I had the ingenious idea that maybe I should listen to it as an audiobook. Wouldn't that be cool? And it was really great. It's narrated by Miranda Hart herself, so if you know who Miranda is, that's wonderful and you probably want to read this. If you don't, then I recommend you watch her sitcom, which is called Miranda. It is hilarious. But this was a great little look into a bit more about her life, a bit about her love life and like how she's come to accept who she is and be happy with who she is, and I always think those kind of stories are really inspiring to take on a bit yourself when you're reading them and to kind of realize that you are enough as you are and you are loved and you are wanted, and it's just like a beautiful story that's really uplifting and obviously was super fun to get through because I read it like that. I obviously rated this 5 out of 5 stars. No complaints, no issues, thought it was great. So the next book that I finished was actually something that rolled on from the previous month's TBR, and that was The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. This is a fantasy, I'm not even sure, it's not even necessarily YA, but it's a fantasy novel. It came out in February this year. I have been trying to get around to it for a really long time, so I apologize to Pam Macmillan for how long that took me to review it, but thank you so much for sending me a copy. This was alright. This was okay. It took me a while to get through and it definitely slowed my reading down at the start of the month because this is just a bit average to start with, but I really enjoyed it on the same note. This has like a really epic hook. Like it's like, what if you knew how and when you would die? And it's like, oh my god. The main character is part of a death cult. She's meant to be a sacrifice. She's grown up knowing that she's going to be a sacrifice. It sounds really exciting, but like the pacing of the plot is like uncomfortable. It's really fast and then it's slow and then it's incredibly slow and then it jumps 3 years and it's like, what is going on? I definitely have several points that I could pull this apart on. I have a full review for this up on my blog. I'm not going to be doing a video review for this because I can't be bothered spending that much time on it if I'm honest, but I do have a full review on my blog, so you can go and check that out. That's at ozbooksnow.com if you want to see my thoughts in more depth as to the pros and cons of this. But this was a good story. It has a great female-female sapphic relationship in it, and I would definitely recommend it if you like your high fantasies, epic, I think it's a high fantasy, borderlining on some sci-fi elements. If you're happy to invest time in getting to know the world, which is really cool, then this is definitely the book for you because I think the series is just going to get better. But if you're more of a casual fantasy reader and you prefer your contemporaries, you're probably going to fall flat on your face within the first 50 pages because this book is a bit of an effort to get into and to like, but it has some great, strong female characters in it that were fantastic. We've got Arana, who's like this evil sorcerer, was amazing. The main character, Xorwei, is really like introverted and interesting, but I did actually really like her. And then there's another character, I think it's Shuthmili. She's like the love interest in the book and she was really cool as well. But yes, there's a lot of great things going for this book. I think the final polish on how this was all put together probably just wasn't quite to my taste at the very least. I will be picking up book 2, but I'm going to be very strict about DNFing it because if it doesn't get better than this book, then I'm not interested in investing more time. Rating this 3 out of 5 stars. I then moved on to my next audiobook, which was Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuvel, and this was Far out. I love this series. So this is the second book in the Sleeping Giant series, and the audiobook is just unreal. It has a full-on cast going for this, so there's several people who are like working on this thing, putting it together, and this is just like next level awesome compared to book one, which blew my mind. I've been saying that book one was one of my favorite reads for 2020 so far, but this is probably eclipsing that because I think this was even better. I love that Nouvelle was really brutal and not being afraid, to put it bluntly, to kill off main and important characters. So much goes down in this book, it is unbelievable. But yes, I would really recommend that you get your hands on a copy of the audiobook because it is just one heck of an experience, and I can't imagine reading this in the book format. Like, I just don't see how it would compare. But this was brilliant. 5 out of 5 stars, all-times favorite list. I'm terrified to see where book 3 is going to go. If you don't know what this is about, then I have a full review for book 1, so I will link that in a card above so you can go check out some more thoughts there. The next book that I read was one from my TBR. I finally cracked onto my TBR, however I don't have my copy with me because my mum has nicked it and is reading it herself, and that is Kevin Kwan's new book, Sex and Vanities. So Kevin Kwan is the author of Crazy Rich Asians, if you're not familiar with his name, and he's a great writer. I've not read Crazy Rich Asians myself, but I have several friends, and my mum included, who have read it and said that it's incredible. And when I saw that this was coming out, I'd seen it on the Melbourne Writers Festival this year because it was online, and I'd watched a few of the author panels there, and I heard him talking about this and I thought, I really want to read this. And it was a fantastic story. It was light, it was easy, it was entertaining. It follows a main character who is American but has Chinese heritage, and a lot of people are asking her like where she's from, and like it was very much so dealing with the issue of having your heritage evident in your features and how that can be really frustrating when people judge you based on what you look like rather than what you're doing with your life. Or yeah, just it was really well done, and it wasn't too heavy and it wasn't too frou-frou. It was just like an entertaining read with a fantastic love interest. Oh my goodness, the love interest in this book, I need me one of them. His name is George, and I am, he was great. So I read that one relatively quickly and I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars. I then willingly derailed my TBR because I wanted to read Serpent and Dove, which I did, and I loved, and I read it so quickly, by Shelby Mahurin. Don't know how to say that name, because I bought the Blood and Honey box, which is the sequel, which came out I think in September. I had wanted to read Serpent and Dove so I understood a little bit more about the context of the stuff that I got in that box, which I have done an unboxing for, so you can see that video too. And I thought, screw it, I have a massive TBR, but I'm gonna try and read this anyway. So I did. It didn't take me long. I've also done a reading vlog of my experience reading it, and it is quite like a hefty book. It's about 500 pages, but it was so entertaining, and I've heard loads of different conflicting reviews. Some people are loving this, some people are hating it. I thought it was fantastic. There are definitely some parts which, if you're taking this literally, it's possibly a bit impossible to believe how quickly the main characters like grow attached to each other. But if you just take it as a fantasy story that's a fun read and you just run with it, it is just like, oh, it's fantastic. It weirdly reminded me a lot of Claire and Jamie from Outlander. That was the sort of vibes I was getting from the relationship in this book. If you don't know what it's about a witch and a witch hunter who are forced to marry each other because of extraneous circumstances, and it is just super entertaining. So this was really fantastic. I was actually quite shocked at how easy a read it was. You just fly through it, and the chapters are just so well written that you can't put it down. So I'm really looking forward to reading Blood and Honey, which is the sequel to this one. This was obviously a 5 out of 5 star read for me. The next book that I finished, you're not allowed to judge me on, but I actually really enjoyed reading it. I found this guy on TikTok who is basically a relationship counselor, and I thought I would give his audiobook a go, and it's called Get the Guy by Matthew Hussey, and I just flew through this. So if you're out there, this book in particular is specifically written for women trying to date men, but if you want to read this and it's just like a really good life coaching, self-help book about dating and about accepting who you are and being like a great, strong, independent woman. I'm not going to say much more about it. I'm not going to be doing a review of this one because it is like totally embarrassing to admit that I've even been reading this, but I just thought it would be good, and it really was. I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. So just putting it out there, guys, if you want a dating advice book, then this audiobook was super great to read. So anyway, let's just move on. The next book that I then read was another one from my TBR, and that was Pantomime by Laura Lamb. So excited that I actually got around to this one, and it was really good as well. It wasn't like a slog to get through or anything. It was super quick. This one follows a main character who is intersex. I've never read a book with an intersex main character taking the lead before, especially in a fantasy novel, which is the genre I predominantly read. They're everywhere in contemporaries, but I very rarely find them in fantasies. I found this when I was shopping in a Waterstones in Ireland must be like going on about 3 or so years ago, and I've been meaning to pick it up for ages. The cover really caught my eye because it's really simple, like the title's really small and down here. I thought it was a really like interesting choices. In my TBR video I pointed out that Leigh Bardugo and Robin Hobb have blurbed this, and yeah, it was just really good. It ends in a really unexpected way because there's sort of, it's dealing with issues of obviously being brought up, the main character being brought up as a woman, but she's beginning to identify more as a man, and it's really conflicting. This is set in a fantastical world, but has very Victorian-esque, like, values and structures, so it's a very difficult time to be an intersex character, an intersex person, obviously. And she ends up running away to the circus, so that's sort of the main thing. As she goes to the circus and she's surrounded by all these other people who are also unusual or can do really cool things. So as we follow Jean, who's also known as Mika Gray in this story, they have like a really tough time working out what their feelings are for another girl and whether they're identifying as male or female and what that means for a relationship. Was dealing with like a lot of big issues, but it was so exciting in the context of a circus, and like it really ends on such like a high cliffhanger. I can't give anything away, but like this book just blew it out of the park. Like there is murder, there is mystery, there is all sorts of things going on at the end of this book. Would highly recommend picking it up. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I ended up reading it 4 out of 5 stars. I am anticipating this series will only get better. Which brings me to the final book that I read in September, and that was More Fool Me by Stephen Fry. So the 3rd installment in his memoirs series, and I did enjoy it. I have to say, I think I probably enjoyed it a little bit less than his first 2 memoirs. I found that this was less of like a beginning, middle, end story and more just some extra thoughts that Fry had and wanted to get on paper. Half of the book, like the very end, is mostly some diary excerpts, and a lot of the book is talking about his I would hesitate to call it addiction, but his use of cocaine, and there was a lot of serious issues that he was discussing that have not been touched at all upon in his previous 2 books. So if you're interested in Stephen Fry and you enjoy his writing, or if you've read some of his other memoirs, then I would definitely recommend continuing on and picking it up. It was super interesting. I really enjoyed it. I just found it a little bit more confusing, and I think he was aware of that when he was writing it, because he sort of mentioned it a couple times throughout the book, of it just sort of being this almost word vomit, but brilliant word vomit, because Stephen Fry is just incredible. So I ended up reading this one 4 out of 5 stars, but yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the audiobook. So I'm really pleased that I got around to reading 8 books in September. I really enjoyed the books that I read. I'm pleased that I managed to at least tick off a few things on my TBR. It did mean that I didn't get around to Crossings, which was an arc that I had wanted to get around to soon. It meant I didn't get around to The Light Over London, which was a present that I got for Christmas, and it meant I didn't get around to Sapiens, which I was really upset about. If you have a really good memory, you'll know that there was also The Lies of Locke Lamora on this TBR. I did start that, but it was like such a heavy going read. I'm still only 50 pages into it. I'm probably going to continue reading that really slowly over the next few months, but yeah, that was a really difficult and unexpectedly difficult read. Other than that, I'm really pleased with my reading, and I think I did a great job reading 8 books in September. I've been so busy and I still managed to get through so many stories, and I'm thrilled about that. So let me know in the comments down below how you did with your reading in September. What was your favourite book? What was your least favourite book? Have you read any of the ones that I read? But other than that, I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.
Alla gloria mia